Allah muna roƙo ga mai girma Abdulrahman Umar Ciyani talakawan Nijar.
If we had focused on them, today I would shock you. Bello Turji has trucks that he's using for transporting stolen cows and all the things that he steals from northwest to southwest of Nigeria. Why haven't the security forces gone after those trucks?
The fight against insurgents in Nigeria has been a nightmare for more than 15 years, costing lives and causing displacement, pain, hunger and poverty to millions of Nigerians, a burden that is overwhelming even the federal government. 2025 is no different as a staggering 1.4 trillion naira is budgeted for defense. Yet, citizens watch the news filled with reports of violence and chaos, and a painful question lingers in their hearts. Is this truly the way to secure their future? Rootstv chatted up with seasoned security and counter-insurgency expert Dr.Kabiru Adamu, Managing Director of Bacon Security and Intelligence Limited. He highlights the current security concerns affecting Nigeria, raising critical questions on budgeting, budget reviews, and lack of oversight in checkmating the spending of the Nigerian armed forces by relevant authorities.
So, first off, it is true that the budget for defense and security is the largest for any sector. It's more than education, it is more than health, it is more than infrastructure. There is no other sector that enjoys up to that 4.9 trillion for budget and defense. But then, like you rightly indicated, the security challenge has been increasing. So clearly, it is not an issue of funding. There are other factors that are leading to this increase in security challenges. Now, the other question is the arm of government that has responsibility for oversight, which is the legislature. Is it actually doing that oversight? A new operation has been launched in the northwest, which is Operation Konsanyama. At what point did the assembly ask questions? What is the time frame? How much is needed to achieve the objectives, the mandate? So it is not really one of budget. The current situation appears to me to be one of using a basket to fetch water. We're pouring money into the security and defense sector, but we are not monitoring in terms of accountability the activities of these security agencies. There are 29 of them, and each and every one of them has a function. Now, at what point have we brought them together to ask the critical question? Are they achieving the objectives of Section 14, subsection 2 of our Constitution? So I don't think it's an issue of budgeting. That money is just money. Whether that money is being used for the right purpose, I mean, you were here when a university was built for the military in Biu. How many persons, Nigerians, actually go to that university?
Speaking on the noticeable resurgence of ISWAP, Boko Haram, and other insurgents since late last year, and the latest recurring attacks against the military formation, Dr. Adamu said it is not surprising, as the approach employed by the government against the insurgents is not holistic and lacks strategy.
Yes, it appears to be a resurgence, and frankly, it was not surprising. It's something that a good intelligence operative could have detected, and steps could have been taken to prevent it from happening. There are three things that serve as oxygen to the groups. Number one, their ability to recruit. Number two, their ability to get more weapons. And then number three, their ability to get funding. We've not done much in stopping these three things. So you can imagine a situation where somebody needs oxygen and you're allowing him to get that oxygen. So that person will continue to grow. And that's exactly what we're seeing at the moment. These groups are still able to do these three things that I've mentioned. Our counter-terrorism and counter-banditry or whatever operation has not succeeded in limiting these three things from happening, sadly.
The expert also alludes to the recent coup in the Niger Republic, counter-insurgency operations in Chad, and the bad economy, which contributes to the latest resurgence of terrorist activities we are witnessing in Nigeria.
The problem. I usually don't like seeing things from that narrow perspective. I would rather look at it generic and then narrow it down to a few things. That's one of the challenges. After the coup in Niger Republic in July 2023, we saw the attempt, as it were, by Nigeria to galvanize ECOWAS effort to isolate Niger, and that has created a friction between the two countries. And unfortunately, it's allowing the bad guys to crisscross within the borders of the country. But development in Chad is also very important. You recall that last year there was an attack in Chad, and the president led a military operation. So they have dislodged the bad guys from the Lake Chad basin, and most of them have come back into Nigeria. That's another factor. Then the socio-economic conditions in Nigeria, the poverty level. If before the groups needed maybe 100,000 naira to incentivize people, now they probably just need 10,000 naira because people are poor, people can't feed. So those are some of the factors that have led to where we are. I must also add that the expanded theater of operations for the military is another factor. The military is stretched. In the past, it was only the northeast and then a few other small locations. But now, you are talking of two major theaters, in fact, three. The northeast, the northwest, and then the Niger Delta area, where they are attempting to address oil theft.
The expert blames the lack of modern equipment, biases, and lack of human intelligence on the recurring misfires recorded against civilians by the Nigerian Air Force since 2017.
First of all, as you know, I run a company called Beacon Security and Intelligence Limited. So when I looked at our database from 2017 up until December 2024, we identified about 580 innocent citizens that have been killed as a result of this misfiring by the military. And the reason is simple. The military, like we discussed earlier on, are involved in several operations around the country. So they are stretched. And because they are stretched, they are attempting to use technology to assist them as a false multiplier. Now, because those technologies are obsolete, that's number one. A lot of the equipment that we have are 1960s, 1970s equipment. Most of them have not been upgraded. So their capacity has been lower. Them were old equipment. They are not new equipment that were bought. And sadly, we've talked about the procurement process that is faulty. I don't want to go into that. It's a canker worm that I don't want to start talking about. But let's leave it that the equipment are old. I mean, today in modern warfare, you have precision munitions that, in fact, in some instances, you can put the DNA of the targeted persons, so that it can go directly to that person and limit the casualty. We don't have that. Then number two, our intelligence capabilities. Intelligence, we use it in Nigeria loosely, but intelligence speaks about actionable intelligence that is verifiable. When you have SIGINT, which is signal intelligence and technical intelligence, you have to have human intelligence on the ground. If they say Bello Turji is in a particular address, maybe 5 minutes ago, it doesn't mean Bello Turji will remain in that address in the next 5 minutes. So by the time you send out a drone to go and kill Bello, you have to have human intelligence that would confirm to you that Bello Turji is still in that address. We don't have that. So it's number one, we've talked about obsolete equipment, we've talked about weakness in intelligence capabilities, then pressure on the Nigerian military to succeed. There's pressure from the presidency, there's pressure from us Nigerians. It sometimes leads to human errors. And then of course bias. This is another canker worm I don't want to go into. The common perception is that it is a particular ethnic group that are behind certain crimes in Nigeria. And so when someone who is manning a device goes into the theater of conflict with that mindset, the likelihood that he will create a mistake.
Dr. Adamu concluded that the military media charade and focus on Turji Bello is a strategic error that will undermine fighting counter-terrorism.
I believe it's a strategic error. Counter-terrorism operations should not target individuals. They should be wholesome. In fact, we have three instruments that have already provided us what to do. Why we are not using those instruments is what we should be worried about. There is the National Counterterrorism Strategy. It was launched in 2016. The custodian of that document is the Office of the National Security Advisor. Then there is the Policy Framework on Countering Violent Extremism, PCVE, launched in 2017. Same, the custodian of that document is the Office of the National Security Advisor. And then you have the Terrorism Prohibition and Prevention Act as amended 2022, which is more or less the baby of the Attorney General of the Federation, with the support of several other government departments, including the Office of the National Security Advisor. Now, all of those three instruments, they speak national. They don't talk individuals. So it is a strategic error for us to give attention to Bello Turji. He is a bandit kingpin who has terrorist tendencies. We should instead focus on terrorism. And there are 5 elements embedded within those 3 instruments that I spoke about. The number 1, forestall terrorism. We should take measures to forestall terrorism, and that includes radicalization. When radicalization is about to happen, we should identify it, we should stop it. The issues that lead to division, lack of equity, lack of inclusion within our society, we should address it. Land governance policies by our state governors that divide people. The case of Zamfara is clearly a case of poor land governance that has created the monster. We haven't addressed that. So after forestall is to identify terrorist groups, identify would-be extremist groups, their process of radicalization, their funding sources, their equipment requisition, and all of that. So once you identify, the next thing to do is to mitigate it. So all of these 5 processes, if we had focused on them, today, I would shock you. Bello Turji has trucks that he's using for transporting stolen cows and all the things that he steals from northwest to southwest of Nigeria. Why haven't the security forces gone after those trucks? If you stop his business, you've crippled him. But nothing has been done to stop his business. He's still able to carry on his business. So again, it's a strategic error to focus on an individual.